Hello and welcome to the Georgia Voice of College Football. I'm your host, Matt Green, and we have some breaking news for you here today. The Georgia Bulldogs have found their quarterback, Jared Curtis, the number one quarterback in the country, according to several. There's different opinions, whoever you are out there, but according to most people, the industry composite rankings, Georgia has landed the number one quarterback in the country, Jared Curtis, out of Nashville, Tennessee. And this is just a massive get for Georgia. Curtis is like I said, the number one quarterback in the 2026 class, and this is the biggest recruitment I can really remember in recent years when it comes to the Georgia Bulldogs. So, Curtis 6'3", 225. He's been compared to Matthew Stafford. He's got some mobility about him. I think Georgia fans are really excited to see that. As Georgia fans, we're used to getting the five-star quarterbacks. Unfortunately, they haven't always panned out at the University of Georgia. Sometimes, sometimes those guys on to bigger and better things at other places. But this one just feels so massive. I feel like in recent years, because like I said, Georgia fans, when it comes to the quarterback position, we've seen a bunch of five stars in recent years, but lots of times, whether it's Justin Fields, whether it's Brock Vandagriff, the list goes on of Georgia quarterbacks that Georgia's Jacob Eason is another one. And Georgia's gotten a bunch of five-star quarterbacks. They just haven't always been able to keep them on campus. So that's been the other issue when it comes to recruiting the quarterback position. But Jared Curtis, he was committed to Georgia back in 2023, decommitted, opened things back up, and I think that spooked a lot of people, especially in recent years when it comes to Georgia on the recruiting trail. Kirby Smart. Not that Georgia's not paying recruits; they're definitely give paying their fair for sure, but it seems like whenever it's the highest bidder, Georgia's not necessarily that destination. So when Jared Curtis decommitted, it was like, okay, it's probably going to be an NIL situation where he goes somewhere, gets a Nico Iamaleava type payday or something. But no, to see Curtis end up committing to Georgia, and he said his relationship with Mike Bobo and Kirby Smart is like the main reason he committed. I think it's just massive for what it does to this class, and obviously Mike Bobo recruited Matthew Stafford as well. It goes way back. Maybe this is something that gets a little pressure off of Mike Bobo. I'm not going to cross my fingers because Georgia fans just love to hate Mike Bobo. But I was just trying to rack my brain for kind of the biggest commitments I could remember in recent years. And you go back to like a Zamir White was the number one ranked running back. That was a huge deal when it happened. Like a Mecole Hardman on National Signing Day was a huge deal. Derek Brown was another one. I think that same day that Georgia didn't get. He ended up going to Auburn. But you've seen just Georgia in recent years, they've kind of become that program that doesn't really hang on one recruit. Like when I do my podcast with I do the Chase Thomas podcast every week with a buddy of mine, Chase Thomas, big Tennessee fan, and it's like the Nico Iamaleava, commitment was just like they were just hanging on that. They're just hanging on so many individual recruits. Like, oh, this is going to be the recruit that gets us. So whether it's Mike Matthews, the guy they got out of Parkview a couple years ago, or it's David Sanders, the big time left tackle, like just so many individual recruitments just feel so massive. When you look at Georgia, just the way they've recruited, like, yeah, Trayvon Walker, huge commitment when Georgia got him. James Cook, huge commit. Jalen Carter, huge commitment when it happened. But it feels like Georgia's just so much more than just one recruit that they're just kind of more than this. Like Brock Bowers is a generational talent. It wasn't a huge deal when he committed to Georgia. It was a big deal, obviously. It was a top 50, top 100 tight end prospect that committed to Georgia. But we haven't seen, just with what Georgia is, that he wasn't as big time as Darnell Washington, like the previous year. So you had Eric Gilbert even coming in the same year as Brock Bowers that most Georgia fans are probably more excited about. So since the national championships, it feels like Georgia's kind of become this program that's they're not really hinging on one recruit, and so maybe it's because it's been a couple years now. Or we sit on 2 straight years that Georgia hasn't won a national championship. What's going on? 2 straight years that Georgia hasn't won a national championship, and now it's like, okay, maybe we need to be a bigger player in the NIL game. Maybe we need that quarterback that's going to be a difference maker, and it's not just and no disrespect to Stetson Bennett, a lot of people talk about Stetson Bennett like it was, oh, anyone could have won a championship with that team with all those 5 stars on offense and defense around him. I don't necessarily think that's true, but I think the essence of the argument is still true. Like a Jalen Hurts type of championship that the Philadelphia Eagles just got. Like, was Jalen Hurts Super Bowl MVP? Absolutely. Did he play an amazing Super Bowl and play well in the playoffs to get his team there? Absolutely. But the reason that team won the Super Bowl is because they were just loaded on defense. They were loaded with playmakers. Saquon Barkley was the best running back in football this year. Like, there's if you just put enough talent around the quarterback, you can have them regardless of how good the quarterback is. It's a more winnable situation. And then you have a guy making plays like Stetson Bennett, and you can win a national championship. And I think that's what this Jared Curtis, commitment does. Like, obviously, Georgia's sitting here with Gunnar Stockton, with Ryan Puglisi, 2 guys that were big time in their own right. But Jared Curtis is up there with the highest recruits Georgia has ever landed. So I think that just makes it just massive, really, when it comes to. Let me see if I had some highlights of Jared Curtis. I'll see if I can get those to the people. Having some technical difficulties there. Let me see if I can pull up these highlights of Jared Curtis, and these are sophomore highlights as well. I think this is coming from his huddle. There you go. Got some highlights on the screen. We'll see if it works there. But yeah, Jared Curtis is now the second highest ranked quarterback commit that Georgia has ever signed. Justin Fields being the number one. Justin Fields, you go back in the 24/7 all-time commits. Justin Fields is the number one recruit Georgia has ever signed in the 24/7 composite ranking. Jared Curtis is number 6, second highest ranked quarterback of all time. Jacob Eason's down there at 9, Matthew Stafford at 10, DJ Shockley at 25, Brock Vandagriff at 33, and Aaron Murray down at 42. I think Matthew Stafford, I was a teenager when Matthew Stafford committed, so that was just like prime, just prime sports fanhood, those teenage years where you have no responsibilities in the world, just watching sports. And I took full advantage of that. And Stafford was just that guy. It's like, maybe that's the guy that can get Georgia to a national championship. And then it was, years later, is Jacob Eason. Jacob Eason and Ben Cleveland committed that same day. Maybe that's the guy that can win a championship for Georgia. Justin Fields, maybe that's the guy that can win a national championship for Georgia. And now Georgia's sitting there like, yeah, maybe Jared Curtis could be the guy, or maybe he'll get beat out by another guy that can also win a national championship, because Georgia's such in a different place right now. So personally, I think Jared Curtis, he feels like that first domino to fall in this 2026 class. Like, you look at Georgia jumped from 17 to 7 in the On3 industry rankings after the commitment of Jared Curtis. And then you look at Jackson Cantwell, the number 1 offensive tackle in the country. I mean, this guy, he moved his commitment date back to May 13th so he could schedule one more unofficial visit to Georgia. And I was already feeling good about that, because it kind of reading between the lines a little bit, like that, that unofficial visit to Georgia, he still has an official visit to Georgia on the table. And, maybe that means he was feeling good about Georgia and he's leaving that official to maybe take during the season or something, maybe help recruit some other guys. So the fact that he was already taking an unofficial, I should say, already had me feeling pretty good about Jackson Cantwell. We've seen Steve Wiltfong with the crystal ball prediction for that number 1 offensive tackle out of Missouri. But now Jackson Cantwell picks Georgia over, Jared Curtis picks Georgia over Oregon. Oregon is also in Jackson Cantwell's final group with Miami, and I believe Ohio State is the other one if I'm not mistaken. Um, but yeah, the fact that he moved his decision date back to May 13th. He's going to visit Georgia May 10th. Oh yeah, and Jared Curtis is also going to be in Athens this weekend. I think that's just another aspect of this that just has to have you really excited if you're a Georgia fan. So just huge news here on May 5th. Jared Curtis, number one quarterback, committing to the Georgia Bulldogs. And we'll see what this does to this 2026 class moving forward. Because I think when you have your quarterback, in the fold, I think they can oftentimes be a real lead recruiter in that class. You've seen it many times when it comes to Georgia. So Jared Curtis, he is unofficially a dog. We still gotta wait it out till December for signing day, but all in all, this is a good day to be a dog. So I appreciate everyone tuning in live. We'll come to you still with our live show every 2 o'clock, every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. Me and Bo Underwood. So we'll be back here. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and as always, go dogs.